Hello everyone, this is Fernanda and welcome to my channel Understanding Literature. Today we're going to talk about the book 1984 by George Orwell. 1984 is a classic in English literature, and it's also a classic in world dystopian literature. And when I talk about dystopian literature, I refer to these stories that imagine an alternative situation for all of us humans. And in opposition to a utopian literature in which society is idealized, it could be either an idealized past, present, or future. Dystopian literature is quite the contrary. It's an imagined alternative in which everything goes wrong. So it could be an alternative for a past, an alternative for our present, or an alternative future. And it could be related, for example, to the destruction of planet Earth, or it could refer to a deadly virus that spreads out all over the world and kills the entire human race. Or, as it happens in George Orwell's 1984, it is a totalitarian government that has taken over and has eliminated all the individuality and subjectivity of the people. When George Orwell wrote this novel, he finished writing it in 1848, so that is just a few years after the end of World War II. And then he imagined an alternative possible future for that period. So then he inverted the numbers. So instead of 1848, which was his present time, he imagined a future in 1984. For us, when we think of 1984, it's already past. But for Orwell's contemporaries, it was a possibility of future. And if we think about about the consequences of the Second World War, it was a future that, had the war ended in a different, had a different outcome, things might have gone that way. So it was really scary for them at the time, as it is nowadays when we read it. It's still scary to imagine such a society that George Orwell created in 1984. So the world has completely changed. Instead of the countries and continents as we live in nowadays, 1984 for George Orwell is composed of three macro continents: Oceania, which comprises basically all of the Americas and Great Britain, East Asia, and Eurasia. And these three macro continents are always at war with each other. So at the moment that the narrative starts, Oceania is at war with Eurasia. And this geographical delimitation, does not follow the standards that we follow nowadays. So there is no more England, there is no more London. Instead, there is this province called Airstrip 1, that's where England used to be. And there is no capital because no city is supposed to be over hierarchically another city. Since the revolution that takes place in this world, a new government takes over and is managed by this party called INGSOC, INGSOC. And the leader of this party is the Big Brother. And the Big Brother is, of course, this mythical godlike figure that hovers over this entire universe, this entire Oceania. And although no one has seen him in person, it's very likely that he doesn't even exist. It's just this created figure to cause the feeling of authority and control over the people. So he doesn't age. It's only this face that it's in every poster around the continent and every nationalistic propaganda on TV. So this face of the Big Brother follows you everywhere, along with the lines, Big Brother is watching you. So the Big Brother is this arching figure at the top of the pyramid, the hierarchy pyramid in this universe. So below the big brother, that are the members of the inner party, and these are the more powerful people that have control and more power over others. Our protagonist here in 1984 is called Winston Smith, and he's just a regular man in his in middle age, and he's a worker in the party. He's not a member of the inner party. He belongs to the next stage in this hierarchical pyramid, which is the officers, the workers of the party. And they all wear the same blue overalls. They cannot use any makeup, or they cannot wear any kind of accessory that would individualize them. So the idea is to erase all traces of individuality and subjectivity. In other words, they're just robots doing what they have to do for the party. And all these members of the middle class in this universe, they all have this screen in their houses. It's like a television nowadays. And through this screen, flat screen, it has to be somewhere where all the angles inside the house are seen, are visible. And through this screen, which is also kind of camera, Big Brother controls everything that goes on inside people's houses. And at the same time, in addition to looking in, it also offers content non-stop, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, of nationalistic propaganda in favor of the party. So it's so much input that they receive of this certain ideology that there's the idea is indeed to manipulate the thought in everyone. And at the bottom of this pyramid, there is the prole. So the proles are the people that have more freedom in a way, but on the other side, they work their daily lives, and that's pretty much all they do. They work and they eat and they survive. They have a very poor lifestyle. They don't need to have those screens inside their houses, but at the same time, they don't have any knowledge about the party, about Big Brother, or about politics. So it's the ignorance of these people that make them so inoffensive. And it's very interesting to see, although also very scary to imagine this kind of government that Orwell created. So as I said before, the top figure is the mythical Big Brother. And this party is managed, or this government is managed by means of 3 ministries. And the first ministry I would like to talk to you about is the Ministry of Truth. And that is where Winston Smith, the protagonist in 1984, works. The Ministry of Truth works with the following. The party wants everyone to live in a constant present tense. All that matters is now, and all that matters is the dominance of the party. So what happened before, or what will happen in the future, it's none of anyone's business. So if at this moment Oceania is at war with Eurasia, it has to have been this way forever. So if there are any traces of a different type of reality, so if in, I don't know, 10 years ago, Oceania was actually at war with Eastasia, all those records have to be either erased or manipulated so that only one truth exists, and that is that Oceania is at war with Eurasia. So as a worker of the Ministry of Truth, Winston receives these records of things that have to be changed in order for the party to maintain one only truth. And another example, people that are dangerous for the party, people that start to think too much, that start to challenge the ideology, they suddenly disappear, they are vaporized. and all of a sudden they become unpersons. And that is another job for the Ministry of Truth. All the records of this person, they just completely disappear. So it's as if this person never existed. So the revision of the past is the goal of the Ministry of Truth. So in a sense, the Ministry of Truth is concerned with lies, in creating a truth that is not truthful. And this dystopian society in 1984 is all about contradictions. So the contradiction in the Ministry of Truth. The second ministry is the Ministry of Love. And the Ministry of Love deals with, it avoids all kinds of love relationships or emotional relationships between the people, not only a couple. So marriage is allowed because otherwise, only for reproduction purposes, because otherwise eventually these people would come to an end, would be extinct. So marriage is allowed. You are supposed to have a family, that's your duty to the party, but there has to be no love, because love is dangerous. It creates bonds that would be higher and stronger than your bond to the party. So there is no love between a man and a woman, or of couples of any gender. There is no love between parents and child, between brothers and sisters. You cannot feel safe, not even in your own home, because if you give a sense, if you say something or you express something on your face that you are not in accordance with the ideology of the party, you will be persecuted and sent to jail. And someone to accuse you could be your own child, because they are raised since kids. They are educated in the schools to pay attention to all these details, to thought crimes. So if they see that in their parents, they will accuse their own parents. So you cannot feel at home, you cannot feel safe, not even inside your own home. You're very lonely. You don't have any bonds with anyone. And that's why it's so difficult to rebel, because who can you trust? You don't know. So the Ministry of Love is in fact a ministry that hinders love, another contradiction. And the third ministry is the Ministry of Plenty. And the government, the party wants to give this idea, they want everyone to believe that their reality at that moment is the best that ever was, because of the generous party and all they've done for the people of Oceania. So for example, if in this year, 2020, let's say, the portion, everything is very portioned, because they are at war. It's a constant war. So they have to ration the food, the clothes. They only have access to very few things. They cannot buy wine, for example. They only have access to a certain amount of gin. They cannot buy real coffee. They can only drink a certain type of coffee that the party offers, and that is only a small amount per person. So let's say that in 2020, the portion per person of chocolate is of 30 grams. But last year, 2019, the portion of chocolate per person was 40 grams. So it means that now people are getting less chocolate than last year. But the Ministry of Plenty will take action and revise the past, and all the graphs and all the data will be changed, so that they will say, for instance, that in 2019, the amount of chocolate per person was 10 grams. So now in 2020, it's 30 grams. So that means that the world is better now, because the Ministry of Plenty is providing for the people. You see how crazy that is. And the contradictions don't stop there. The three slogans of the party are representative of all this contradiction. The first one is war is peace. The second, ignorance is strength. And the third, freedom is slavery. So there is not much you can do. You have to follow, if you want to be safe, if you want to just live, you have to follow the party and its rules. And then we come back to our protagonist, Winston Smith, and he starts to think about how life used to be before the revolution and before the beginning of this party. So it's not clear, but when this revolution began and the world changed. But Winston he's a middle-aged man, and he has some memories, some blurred memories of a childhood in a different place, in a different type of London. And he's fascinated about the past, and he tries to remember, he tries to reach out to old people that would have lived through this transition, but they seem to have just erased all that memory from their minds, because that's exactly what the party wants, for you to be living in a present of oppression. And Winston he doesn't know where to start if he were to challenge this whole idea. Is he the only one who thinks that way? Is he the one who's crazy, or is everybody else? And then eventually he meets a woman called Julia, and they bump into each other in the corridor, and she puts a piece of paper inside his hands, and when he has time to read it without being watched by any of the cameras and Big Brother, he reads the only sentence: "I love you." And although it may seem cheesy to write a note like that, to say "I love you" in that society in 1984 was a subversive act, because love was not allowed. So he sees in her a possible ally in this rebellion against the party ideology, and they try to come to terms with what they can do. And I'm not going to tell you what happens in the end. One more thing I would like to tell you about this society is the language. So they're also changing the language, because the language is powerful. So they've created a new type of language called Newspeak. And all the words that they believe, and they are indeed dangerous words, such as freedom or ideology or justice, these words do not exist anymore. So only the vocabulary will be reduced extremely. So if there isn't a word to refer to the concept of freedom, it doesn't exist. For this generation, for Winston's generation that's still in a transition, it's hard to understand this change. But for the new generations that will be born in this society in which the word freedom doesn't exist, they will not understand the concept. So they would never rebel for freedom if freedom doesn't exist in their own heads. So it is indeed a very, very scary dystopia. So there you see a very good example of a dystopian, in that case, future, so an alternative reality. I hope you have enjoyed to know more about George Orwell's 1984. If you've read this book before, or if you want to read it, leave your comments. I would love to know your opinion on this book. If you are not yet subscribed to this channel, please do. If you like the video, don't forget to like it and give it a thumbs up. And I will see you in our next video.